We speak of the Aryas, the noble ones. But to truly know them, we must first understand their soul, the Veda. This is not a book bound in leather, but a living, breathing symphony of sound. A cosmic vibration of hymns, chants, and sacrificial formulas passed down through 100 generations, not by ink, but by the sacred power of human memory. They are the people of the Sacred Chant. Close your eyes. Do not picture stone cities or towering pyramids. Instead, imagine a vast, untamed land of thundering rivers and deep forests. See small, semi-nomadic tribes, their wealth counted not in gold, but in herds of cattle. Picture flickering firelight from a central altar, where priests chant verses to the dawn, to the storm, to the very fabric of existence. This is our starting point, a world shaped by the spoken word and the sacrificial fire. The initial challenge for these people was survival, appeasing the powerful, often tempestuous gods of nature like Indra, the thunder-wielding king of gods, and Agni, the fire god who was their messenger. Their entire world was a ritual to maintain Ta, the cosmic order. But a great change is coming. A journey eastward will not only alter their map, but will fundamentally rewrite their society, their technology, and even their gods. The stake will shift from mere survival to the very definition of power and reality. Our story begins in the Saptasindhi, the land of the seven rivers, corresponding to the Punjab region of modern India and Pakistan. This was a land of open plains and abundant water, ideal for a pastoral people whose hymns celebrated its life-giving streams. The Rigveda paints a vivid picture of this world, a fresh, vibrant landscape where the tribe, Jana, was the center of the universe. A slow, inexorable migration begins. Over centuries, the Vedic tribes move eastward, down from the Punjab and into the dense, marshy forests of the Gangetic Plain. This was a different world. It was harder to clear, demanding more effort, more organization. This new geography, the land between the Ganga and Yamuna rivers, would become the crucible of a new era, forging tribes into kingdoms. Imagine you are a tribal elder on this great migration. The familiar open skies of the Punjab are replaced by the canopy of a dense jungle. The rivers are slower, the air heavier. What new skills must your people learn? What new gods or spirits must be respected in this new land? This journey reshaped their soul as much as their location. You search the landscape for cities, for walls, for monuments. You find none. In the early Vedic period, the urban center was the temporary settlement, a collection of wood and thatch huts centered around the sacrificial altar. Society was tribal, not urban. The king, the Rajan, was a tribal chieftain, not a city-based monarch. This is the first twist, a civilization of immense cultural complexity without the stone and mortar footprint we expect. As they settle in the Gangetic Plains, something changes. Larger, more permanent settlements begin to emerge. Archaeologists call this the painted gray ware culture. Places like Hastinapura and Indraprastha, known to us from later epics, begin their lives as large villages or proto-towns. These were not yet sprawling metropolises, but the seeds of urbanization were being sown in the fertile Gangetic soil. The cow was the currency. It was wealth, status, and a sacred being, all in one. The primary economic activity was pastoralism, supplemented by limited agriculture. A rich man was a gomit, one who has cows. Wars, called Gavishti, the search for cows, were fought over cattle. The entire economic and social system revolved around the herd. The move east and the clearing of forests brought agriculture to the forefront. The introduction of the iron plowshare around 1000 BCE was a revolution. It allowed them to tame the hard soil of the Gangetic Plain, cultivating rice and wheat on a larger scale. For the first time, agricultural surplus became possible, a development that would change everything. There were no coins. The economy ran on barter and, more importantly, on the principle of dana, the ritual gift. The king or chieftain would receive tribute bali from his people and then redistribute that wealth through massive public sacrifices, yajnas, and gifts to the priests Brahmins. It was a sacred economy of obligation and redistribution that bound society together. Hear the thunder of hooves and the rumble of wooden wheels. The iconic weapon of the Vedic Age was the horse-drawn chariot. Manned by a driver and an archer or spearman, it was the ancient equivalent of a tank, a fast, mobile weapons platform used to break enemy lines and create chaos. Warfare was a matter of tribal raids and heroic, small-scale clashes, not massed infantry formations. Their chief god, Indra, was the perfect reflection of their martial spirit. He was a hard-drinking, boastful warrior who smashed fortresses, Purandara, and battled cosmic dragons. To fight like a Vedic warrior was to emulate Indra, to be bold, heroic, and to bring glory to one's tribe through victory in battle. As tribes coalesced into territorial kingdoms, Janapadas, the nature of war evolved. The goal shifted from raiding for cattle to conquering and holding land. Armies grew in size and complexity. While the chariot remained prestigious, infantry became more crucial, and a new, terrifying weapon appeared on the battlefield: the war elephant. The arrival of iron, Syama Ayas, around 1000 BCE was a technological leap forward. It was stronger than bronze, Loha Ayas, enabling the creation of more durable plows, axes to clear the dense forests, and more effective weapons. This wasn't just a new material, it was the engine of expansion and societal change. Beyond metal, Vedic craftsmen were skilled carpenters, essential for building chariots, homes, and sacrificial implements. Weavers produced fine textiles of cotton and wool. But it is their pottery that leaves a distinct signature. The beautifully made, fine gray pottery painted with geometric black designs, known as painted gray ware, is the key archaeological marker of this period. You are a Vedic blacksmith, one of the most valued members of your village. The fire of your forge mirrors the fire of the sacred altar. With each strike of your hammer, you are not just shaping metal, you are shaping the future of your people, turning ore into a plow that will feed a family or an arrowhead that will defend your kingdom. You hold the power of transformation in your hands. Here we arrive at the great historical mystery. We have one of the world's most sophisticated and voluminous bodies of literature, the Vedas, from this period. And yet, there is no evidence of a writing system. No inscriptions, no clay tablets, no script. It is a deafening silence. How can a civilization of such profound literary genius not write? The twist is that this wasn't a failure, but a deliberate choice. For the Vedic people, the spoken word, sabda, was divine. The hymns were not mere words but vibrations of power. To write them down would be to trap and diminish them. Their script was the human mind, trained through rigorous mnemonic techniques to memorize tens of thousands of verses with perfect pronunciation, preserving their sacred power across the centuries. It was the ultimate testament to the power of oral tradition. At the absolute center of life was the yajna, the fire sacrifice. This was no simple campfire prayer. It was a complex, cosmic ritual. Priests would chant for days, making precise offerings of ghee, grain, and soma, a sacred drink, into the fire, which carried them to the gods. The universe was seen as a grand ritual, and the yajna was humanity's way of participating in it and maintaining cosmic order. This ritual complexity gave rise to a structured society. The famous Varna system, social classes, finds its first expression here, described as emerging from the sacrifice of a primeval being, the Purusha. The Brahmins, priests, from his mouth; the Kshatriyas, warriors, from his arms; the Vaishyas, merchants and farmers, from his thighs; and the Shudras, laborers, from his feet. In this early stage, it was likely a more fluid classification of function than the rigid, hereditary caste system it would later become. But as the smoke of a million sacrifices began to clear, a profound intellectual shift occurred. The agricultural surplus created a society with more time for thought. Sages and thinkers, retreating to the quiet of the forest, began to ask new, unsettling questions. Is ritual action the only path to the divine? What happens after death? What is the true nature of the self, Atman, and the ultimate reality, Brahman? The focus was turning from the outer world of ritual to the inner world of the mind. The answer to these questions came in the form of the Upanishads, the secret teachings. These philosophical dialogues, composed at the very end of the Vedic period, represent a dramatic climax. They declare that the ultimate reality, Brahman, is identical to the individual soul, Atman. The path to liberation was not through external sacrifice, but through internal knowledge, meditation, and self-realization. This was a revolution in thought, a turn from ritualism to philosophy that would define Indian spirituality forever. The Vedic period did not disappear in a cataclysm of war or famine. It simply transformed, outgrowing its old skin. The very success of its social and economic systems created a world that was no longer tribal and pastoral. The old ways were not so much destroyed as they were absorbed and built upon. By 500 BCE, the Janapadas had consolidated into 16 great kingdoms, the Mahajanapadas. Cities like Pataliputra and Varanasi were rising. New coinage was being introduced. And the philosophical ferment of the Upanishads had given rise to new challengers to the old Brahminical order, most notably Buddhism and Jainism. The Vedic world had become the classical world. The legacy is immeasurable. The Vedic chants are still recited today. The core concepts of Dharma, Karma, Atman, and Brahman that were born here became the foundation of Hinduism and influenced all other Indian philosophies. Sanskrit, the language of the Vedas, became the classical language of South and Southeast Asia. The social structures, the epic narratives like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, which are set in this era, and the philosophical inquiries all have their roots buried deep in the soil of the Vedic Age. Every time you hear the word karma, guru, mantra, or avatar, you are speaking the language of this ancient period. Every time you see a wedding ceremony that involves circling a sacred fire, you are witnessing an echo of the ajna. Their world is gone, but its ideas are woven into the very fabric of life for over 1 billion people today. Our story began with a nomadic chieftain chanting to the dawn in the land of 7 rivers. It ends with a philosopher king in a burgeoning city on the banks of the Ganges, pondering the nature of the soul. The journey of the Vedic people was a sweeping epic, a movement from west to east, from tribe to kingdom, from pastoralism to agriculture, and most profoundly, from the outer fire of ritual to the inner fire of contemplation. They did not leave behind stone monuments, but something far more enduring, a world of ideas that continues to shape humanity.